Hi, everybody. I'm here with Rob Spencer. Rob is a friend of mine from rugby club and is an expert around artificial intelligence and agentic technologies. But Rob, give us a quick introduction to you and your background.
Yeah, so I'm Rob Spencer. I come from a very technical background. Been playing around with cutting edge technology for a long time, and over the past, I suppose, 5 years, I've been playing around with AI an awful lot, trying to understand what the business value is. I've done some work with Standard Life, and I've also got a consultancy called Agentic Workflows, which helps companies adopt AI.
Great. Okay. So thank you for joining me today. And what I want to do is really demystify a little bit about what agentic and AI agents actually are. And I'm going to be really frank. I'm quite fed up with the amount of HR technology companies in my world who are using these terms. I appear to either be lying or misunderstanding what they actually are because I read the websites and the social media posts and I'm like, that's bullshit, that's bullshit, that's bullshit. And then you look at graphics and you look at the blog and whatever, and you go, there's nothing agentic in that whatsoever. So Rob,
Yes.
tell us what it actually is.
So yeah, that's so yeah, there's an awful lot of do we call it snake oil? But I think the good thing is that everybody's leaning in and everybody wants to understand it. I think everybody's really curious about it, which is really good. I think there's two kind of key things for me at the moment. There's agents, which we used to call chatbot, but I think they're probably a lot smarter nowadays, and they're kind of chat agents, and you can have a chat with them, and you can have a conversation about lots of different topics, and they'll give you some great advice, and they're kind of very generic, and they can do lots of different stuff. I think in business though, sometimes we need a definite outcome. And so we still kind of want that agentic kind of quality, but we want it to operate in a lot more constrained bounds. So, we want a definite business outcome, and that's where agentic workflows comes in for me. I think it's a combination between kind of deterministic work and then leveraging kind of the creative genius of AI, in order to get that business outcome. Hopefully that makes sense. That's kind of my take on where we are.
Right. So give us a couple of examples of what an agentic workflow is. What like practically what's it
Yeah.
capable of achieving?
Yeah, so I think one of the first places to start is probably looking at real world business processes. So, for example, a marketing agency might get a brief from a customer. That might go to some senior consultants where they take that brief apart and they think about the strategy and the approach. That then would get documented, and that might go to a few different areas in the company where somebody might then start take that kind of strategy and start thinking about a campaign, and then they'll document kind of the vision for the campaign, and then that will move through to somebody else, and kind of things kind of go more junior and then senior, and then you end up with a campaign, with keywords, with the color scheme, with the tone of voice, all that kind of stuff. That for me can be replicated in a agentic workflow. So you have the customer document coming in and then coming out at the other end, documented in, I always think of Confluence, documented in a way that can then be used and actually acted upon.
Yeah, good example because that's effectively what we do at Poetry for
Right.
recruitment talent acquisition teams. Um, okay, so what um the some to be agentic, right? The technology needs to have different options and needs to be able to kind of almost make its own decisions, right? Just give us a bit of
Thi-
explanation
This,
about this.
so this is a really interesting point. And I spent a long time in the army, and if I did something wrong, I would say, oh, I thought this or I thought that. And I would always get told, you're not paid to think, you're paid to do. And I think sometimes in business, people aren't necessarily paid to think, they're paid to do. And that's kind of where you want that repeatability. And I think that's the difference quite often between an agent and an agentic workflow. An agent sometimes gets it wrong and kind of sometimes misunderstands you. and that's why they're not great at kind of business output. Whereas sometimes you want to remove a bit of the agency, and you just want it to do. Does that make sense? I think that's probably quite a
Yeah.
controversial topic, because I think a lot of, when you hear about, things like, AGI and stuff like that, where an agent can do everything. I In business, I don't think we want somebody to do everything. We just want somebody to do what we've kind of designed.
Yeah, okay, absolutely understood. So what are the things that what are the type give me a type of a business process or scenario where an agentic workflow would not be the right thing to do.
Yeah, that's a great question. Where would an agentic workflow not be the right thing to do? So I think a lot of I think where there's a lot of data, a lot of numerical data, I think this whole hype thing that we're in at the moment with AI is all about large language models. And yes, you need a lot of data to train the models, which, OpenAI, Anthropic, Meta, they need the data. But actually, for us consuming the model, it's all about language. And so I think they're very, very good at, at creating language. They're not so good at analyzing data. I think if you've got a lot of kind of financial data, and you need to, you're talking about, probability and scenarios and that kind of stuff, you'd probably want some, kind of Python, quant engineering, actual engineering model, rather than language. I think there's quite often when we look at use cases in businesses come with a lot of data, and they say, oh, can you organize this data? And I think to do that, you're talking about training models to do that, or writing models to do that. Whereas a lot of the stuff that is really useful these days is all about language and creating language.
Where do you stand on the concept that agentic workflows are removing the need for humans and therefore they're going to end up with jobs being displaced?
So there's an awful lot to unpack there. So I really enjoy writing. I enjoy, creating a document which has got an ebb and a flow. You've got your start, your body, your conclusion. I really enjoy that. So I don't use AI to do that, because it's something I enjoy doing. There's a lot of stuff that I don't enjoy doing, and I'd rather AI helped out with that. So I think the ethical thing, when we look at when we look at implementing AI workflows, is speaking to the people who are doing the work and asking them, what do you enjoy doing? What don't you enjoy doing? And you often find that the really mundane rubbish stuff that AI is really good at, we can replace. Whereas, the human interaction, you and I having a conversation, this is enjoyable. We're enjoying doing this. We wouldn't want to replace this with AI. So yeah, I think it's being ethical and replacing the boring stuff and keeping the fun stuff.
I mean, you've only got to look at most people's diaries and they're full of meetings and arguably there's too many meetings in business, of course, but at the same time, yeah, you can't really just outsource your meetings to AI
I
because there's too much nuance in the conversations.
Absolutely, yeah, 100%. I think preparing for a meeting, is a good use case for AI. I think capturing the output, you can record it, capture the transcript. That's another good. But the actual meeting and the face to face, and you know the stuff we enjoy doing, I think we need to keep.
Okay, so two more questions. The first is like for young people, is there any particular advice that you would have around like if I'm an 18-year-old thinking about leaving like going to be leaving school soon, is there any advice that you've got for me that's going to help me to be have more future career opportunities?
Embrace AI. Using AI isn't cheating. I think a lot of young kids are hearing that using AI is cheating, which I get when we're talking about exams. But I think apart from that, it's going to just empower you massively. One of the things I always say is learn how to create value for people around you. If you can hone that skill, look at your social group, your professional network. Where do people need help? because actually using AI to build the solution is really, really easy. And I think that's the key skill. Find out how you can develop, how you can deliver value for people around you, but embrace
Um,
it. AI is not cheating.
yeah, no, I mean, I completely agree. And I've got to say, for people that are like, I'm 49, people of like my age, this concept of, I'm a bit of a technophobe or I'm a bit of a dinosaur when it comes to technology, that's not going to see you through till the end of your career.
Yeah,
I mean, if you're like 60, then you could probably get away with it. But if you're like 50 or under, you're gonna have to get with the script here.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm 1977, probably the same as you. I wrote my first line of code when I was 7.5 on a BBC Micro, which was really cutting edge, back in the 80s. But I've grown up with technology. I can write code. I just understand technology. I think people growing up now who are going to be, exposed to AI from the beginning, the type of stuff they're going to be building in the future will just be mind blowing. It'll be incredible.
I had a BBC Micro as well. It
Yeah,
was a BBC Micro B, is what it was called.
right. BBC.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So last one then. Tell us about agentic workflows. I know you do a lot of work with banks and things like that, but like, why would somebody make contact? What do you guys do for them?
Yeah, so absolutely. I think there's a lot of fear at the moment around AI adoption. I think there's a bit of confusion at boardroom level. I think that manifests as, unmanaged risks, no plan for AI adoption, and quite importantly as well, uncertainty in the workforce. So I think agentic workflows can help bring clarity around that and help adopt AI in a way that is really ethical and supports the business needs rather than just AI for AI's sake.
Wonderful. Rob, thanks for your time today. Great to see you.
Thank you very much. Cheers, Adam. Take care.